Good morning. This is Teacher Steplaton. Welcome to our today's lesson. We are going to have science, and you're going to have science class 6. So we'll be focusing so much on class 6. And in our today's lesson, we want to handle a unit called soil. Under the unit soil, we are going to handle the topic called soil erosion. So we are learning science. And our unit is soil. Another soil, we are going to learn about soil erosion. Soil erosion is not a new topic in Standard 6. So it has been taught in the previous classes. Just to mention a few of the things that have been learned in the previous classes under this topic soil. We have components of soil. We have the roughness or softness of soil, that is soil texture. We also have capillarity, and we also have drainage. So those are the lessons that you learned in the previous classes in this topic soil. So today we are going to talk about soil erosion. So this is the content that you need to learn in class 6. As you go to class 7 and 8, you'll also learn something else about the same topic. So the first thing that I want us to start with is looking at the objectives. Objectives of the lesson. An objective is what you intend to achieve at the end. So you will know that you've learned this topic correctly if you'll be able to answer the 3 questions that I'm going to write here. That is the objectives of our lesson. So the first one is, you need to define what soil erosion is. So you need to define soil erosion as our first objective. Objective number 2, you need to state agents of soil erosion. And objective number 3, you need to draw and describe the types of soil erosion. So these are our 3 objectives for the lesson. So I want to read them through. So the first objective is, you need to define what soil erosion is. Objective number 2, you need to state the agents of soil erosion. And objective number 3, you need to draw and describe the types of soil erosion. So we start by our first objective, which is to define soil erosion. Now in this word, soil erosion, so we have 2 words. We have soil and we have soil erosion. So to bring you to the know-how, let us look at soil first. Soil is the upper covering of the earth surface. The upper covering of the earth surface, that's what you call soil. That's a very simplified definition. Then, having known what soil is, we can now look at soil erosion as our first objective. Now, soil erosion can be defined as the carrying away of top fertile soil by agents of soil erosion. Let me repeat. Soil erosion is the carrying away of top fertile soil by agents of soil erosion. So let me write. Soil erosion is the carrying away of top fertile soil by agents of soil erosion. So we have the top fertile soil that is responsible for many activities such as farming. So it is usually carried from one place to another. That process of carrying the soil from one place to another is what we call soil erosion. Soil erosion occurs whereby the top soil, the top fertile soil, is the one that is carried away. And it's carried away by what you call agents of soil erosion. We'll be coming to what we refer to as agents of soil erosion. So that is what we call soil erosion. If you look at different places, you will find that the level of soil usually goes down, especially when it is on a slope. It can be a steep slope or a gentle slope. On a flat land, soil erosion is not much compared to a steep slope or a gentle slope. So we'll also be looking at factors that increase what we call soil erosion. So we have done the first objective, which is to describe or to define what soil erosion is. And I have said soil erosion is the carrying away of top fertile soil by agents of soil erosion. So we can look at next. Next are agents of soil erosion. When I talk about agents of soil erosion, I'm trying to talk about what is it that can make soil erosion to take place. Having known that soil erosion is the carrying of top fertile soil. Now, what is this that carries the top fertile soil from point A to point B? Maybe from uphill to downhill. Whatever carries that soil is what I'm calling soil erosion agents or agents of soil erosion. They're the ones that enable the carrying away of the top fertile soil from one point to another. So let's look at the agents of soil erosion. So we have three agents of soil erosion. The main one are two, but we also have a third one. So the first agent of soil erosion is called wind. Wind is the first agent of soil erosion. Wind, in your lower primary, you defined wind as moving air. Wind is referred to as moving air. This wind is an agent of soil erosion such that it carries soil from one point to another. In which way? When the wind is blowing, many a times, it carries dust particles with it. Together with dust particles, it carries the soil particles. Now, these soil particles will be moved from point A to point B. If wind is blowing from east to west, soil particles will be carried from east and taken to west. That is what we refer to as moving air or wind, and it enables the soil erosion to take place. If you are moving in a Maram road, for instance, and then the wind blows, you see so much dust particles. Together with the dust particles are always the soil particles, and they are carried from one point to another, therefore making wind an agent of soil erosion. We come to point number 2, which is water. So underwater, we shall also include rainfall. So water can carry soil from one place to another in form of rainfall as it falls down or while the water is flowing downstream. So we start with rainfall. Rainfall, in terms of water, is an agent of soil erosion such that when it is raining, the water usually hits the ground. When it hits the ground, it makes the soil particles to be loose. And as water collects itself, it starts to flow. So as it is flowing, it carries some soil particles from one point to another. We can also look at water that is flowing. It can be in rivers or any water bodies. So when you look at the flowing of water, take for example a river, as the water is flowing downstream, there is usually soil particles that are carried together with the water. So these soil particles are always carried from one place to another. Those people who are maybe in a country, if you are next to a river, so this is a river. I want to show you how water is an agent of soil erosion. So this is a river, and then this is a slope, and this is also a slope. You will realize that when it rains or when water flows downwards, this water carries soil particles such that after raining, this river water, is always muddy. Why is it muddy? It is muddy because as the water was flowing down, it carried so many particles, which are soil particles, into the river, therefore making it very muddy or dirty in simple terms. So that is how water becomes an agent of soil erosion. And I said agents of soil erosion are what enables soil erosion to take place, or what carries soil from one part to another. Now the third agent, which is not so much pronounced as the rest, these are animals. Animals can also be agents of soil erosion. They can be able to make soil to be carried away from one point to another. How is this possible? Let's look, for example, when you are keeping animals, domestic animals, cattle, for instance, then as they go grazing, they move around. Where they move around, you realize that they cause some trenches or some ditches. This is because they are able to carry soil particles from where they are walking to other places, that therefore contributing to what we call soil erosion. So we have three agents of soil erosion. The main one are two. We have wind as our main and water. So the two are our main agents of soil erosion, but in addition, we also have animals as another agent of soil erosion. So these are agents or agents of soil erosion. Now let's look at factors that increase the rate of soil erosion. Factors that increase the rate of soil erosion. Factors increasing the rate of soil erosion. When I talk about factors that increase the rate of soil erosion, I'm trying to bring to you the things that will make soil erosion to be more in a specific place and to be less in another place. So that's what I refer to as factors increasing the rate of soil erosion. You realize that the rate of soil erosion is always different depending on some other factors. We might find some places soil erosion is so high. We might find some places whereby soil erosion is not as high as compared to other places. So let's look at the factors increasing the rate of soil erosion. Number one, we have steepness of the land. So let me list them first, then I will talk about each one of them. So we have steepness of the land as our first factor. We have intensity of the rainfall. Intensity of the rainfall as our second factor. We have the type of soil. The type of soil as our third factor. land cover as our other factor. I'm listing the factors first, then I'll be talking about each one of them. Then, number 5, we also have human activities. So these are the 5 main factors that increase the rate of soil erosion. So the first one is steepness of the land. The second one is intensity of the rainfall. The third one is the type of soil. The fourth one is the land cover. And the last one is human activities. So these are the factors that will make soil erosion to be increased in some places and maybe not to be increased in some places, depending on these factors. So let's look at the first factor, which is steepness of the land. Steepness of the land as our first factor. That is the one. That's what I want to explain with a certain demonstration. So we have, when we refer to steepness of the land, this means if the first land, this is the gradient of the first land, and the second land, this is the gradient of the second land. Now, when I talk about steepness, I mean how intense is the slope. So if the slope is so intense, we call it to be very steep. But if it's not, then it is not so steep. So this one we can call it gentle, and this one you can call it steep. So a steep slope and a gentle slope. So depending on the steepness of the land, the more steep the land is, the more the soil erosion will be experienced. The more gentle the land is, the less soil erosion will be experienced. So, taking an example, so this one is your land, and this is the slope of the land. Then we have this other type of the land, and it's very steep. If water starts to flow, this is common sense. If water starts to flow, so let's say we pour water at this part. So when we pour water here, and we pour water here, answer this question back at home. Where do you think the water will flow very fast? Where do you think the water will flow very fast? So answer at home. I wish I could hear your answers. So I believe those who said part 2 were right. Here, the water will flow very fast, but here, the water will flow very slow. Now, that flowing, the fast flow or the fast flow or the slow flow of water is going to determine the rate of soil erosion. As we said, soil erosion is the carrying of top fertile soil by agents of soil erosion, which we have looked at them. Now, this part, the water as it flows will move at a high speed. As the water is flowing, will move at a high speed, but while the water is flowing, will move at a slow speed. So the high speed that the water is flowing with will enable it to carry a lot of soil particles downwards. So as the soil particle is being carried downwards, the rate of soil erosion is very high. But because we have low speed of flowing water at 0.1, then the rate of soil erosion will also be very slow, such that the steeper the land, the more the soil erosion, and the gentler the land, the less the soil erosion. So that is the first factor that we have looked at, which is the steepness of the land. Let's look at our second factor, which is intensity of rainfall. Now, how does intensity of rainfall affect soil erosion? Let me explain also. I'm explaining the second factor, which is intensity of rainfall. intensity means, in simple terms, intensity means how heavy the rainfall is. You know, we have, from your social studies content, you know, we have types of rainfall, and depending on this type of rainfall, we have some that fall in form of ice, the storms, but we have other that are always light. Now, when the intensity is high or the rainfall is so high, then it's likely to have more effect on soil erosion compared to if the rainfall was not intense. Such that if it is intense, if this one is your land and we have intense rainfall, it will make or it will displace a high number of soil particles. So much soil particles will be displaced. Much of soil particles will be displaced, which means it will be removed. Simple English, it will be removed from the ground. Once it is removed from the ground, it can be carried by the flowing water. So the higher, the more intense the rainfall, the higher the amount of soil erosion taking place. That is point number 2. Point number 3, we come to type of soil. Now we learn 3 types of soil. You can answer at home, the 3 types of soil. Tell whoever you're watching with. Now, I believe types of soil, you gave 3 types of soil. So you gave the following. You gave 1 as sand soil, you gave 2 as loam soil, and you gave 3 as clay soil. Now, these 3 types of soil erosion determine the rate of, these 3 types of soil, determine the rate of soil erosion. Now, it determines the rate of soil erosion because we look at the soil structure. How is the soil compacted? Now, based on that, we concentrate on these 2 types of soil. So we have sand soil and we have clay soil. You realize that sand soil has large soil particles. So sand soil has large soil particles. And these soil particles are loosely attached. When we come to clay soil, the definition of particles of clay soil, it is defined as fine soil particles. It has what you call fine soil particles. Now, these fine soil particles are compacted together, but the large soil particles are loosely attached. Based on the 2, when the water is flowing or when there is soil erosion, sand soil will have more soil erosion due to the fact that the particles are loosely attached. Clay soil will not have much of soil erosion because the soil particles are compacted together. Therefore, it will be hard to carry the soil particles from one point to another. When we come to loam soil will just have a moderate type of soil erosion. It will not be high or it will neither be high nor low. So that is the 3rd factor that increases or determines soil erosion. Then we come to number 4, the land cover. When I talk about land cover, I'm looking at a bare land and a land that has either plantations or trees. When we have a bare land, soil erosion is going to be high. But when we have plant cover on a land, then soil erosion is going to be very minimal. Why is it so? When the land is bare, there will be nothing to block the water or the wind while it is blowing, if it's the wind, or while it is flowing, if it's the water. Therefore, it will carry with it as much soil particles as possible, therefore having what you call a high rate of soil erosion. But when the soil has some plant cover, then it means that if there are trees are going to act as wind breakers. What do I mean by wind breakers? I mean, while the wind is blowing, the trees will be able to reduce the speed of the wind, and with no time, as the speed is reducing, the wind will at some point vanish. That's what that is how trees help to reduce the rate of soil erosion. If they are plant cover, take for example cover crops like grass, for instance, when we have raindrops, they will not be able to hit the ground. Or when we have water flowing, these plants, which are the plant covers, they will be able to reduce the rate of the water that is flowing. So that is the fourth type or factor. Then we have the last one, which is human activities. These human activities, when I talk about human activities is a general term. So the human activities here that will increase soil erosion. One, just to name a few, so we have the human activities that will increase soil erosion. One, we have what you call deforestation. Two, we have what you call mining. Three, we have what we call construction. And four, we can have poor farming methods. Poor farming methods. So these are some of the few human activities that can increase soil erosion. We look at the first one, deforestation. Deforestation means cutting trees without replacing them. So when trees are cut, then the ground is going to be left bare. When the ground is left bare, there will be no windbreakers to break the wind, and therefore soil erosion is going to be very high. That is deforestation. We come to mining. Mining is usually the extraction of minerals from deep down the soil. Those of you at home, if you stay near a mining company, you realize that these mining companies usually drill holes, very deep holes, inside the ground. As they drill these holes, they make the soil particles to be very loose. So when they are loose, they can easily be carried by either water or wind, therefore increasing the rate of soil erosion. We come to construction. In construction, we can have maybe construction of buildings or roads, but most pronounced is usually the construction of roads. While the roads are being constructed, you find that the road is usually dug. As it is dug, soil particles are always left heaped to each other. This one results to soil being carried from one place to another easily. We also have poor farming methods. An example of a poor farming method can be plowing. Plowing along a slope. So when you plow along a slope, what do I mean by plowing along a slope? If you have a land that is slopey, then you plow from top to bottom, you're going to make furrows or channels. These furrows or channels will give water a good passage, therefore carrying with it as many soil particles as possible, therefore increasing the rate of soil erosion. So these are the factors that increase the rate of soil erosion. So we can look at our last objective, which is types of soil erosion. So this one is our last objective, which also forms part of the main part of the lesson. So our last objective, that's what you want to tackle right now, which is the types of soil erosion. So we have 4 types of soil erosion that usually occur. So the types of soil erosion. So we have 4 types of soil erosion. I want to list them, then explain later. So the first one, we have splash erosion. The second one, we have sheet erosion. The third one, we have rill erosion. And the fourth one, we have gully erosion. So these are the 4 types of soil erosions that we have. So we have splash erosion, sheet erosion, rill erosion, and gully erosion. Let me start with splash erosion. Now, splash erosion usually occurs due to raindrops. So when the raindrops hit the soil surface, it displaces the soil particles, leaving some small holes on the ground. That is what we call splash erosion. If this one is the ground, so you find that as the raindrops are falling, when they hit the ground, soil particles are usually displaced. The end result of this, you find that your ground looks something like this with small holes. So we have small holes. So this one is what I call splash erosion. Splash erosion is also called spatter erosion. Some books will call it spatter erosion. Some books will also call it raindrop erosion. So some books will call it spatter erosion, splash erosion, or raindrop erosion. And it occurs due to raindrops falling and displacing the soil particles. It is mostly found below the rooftops of buildings. So where we have the roofs, where the water drops down there, if you go outside your house, if it's not a story building, you will realize that around your house, we have such holes. And that is what we refer to as splash erosion. It can be easily controlled by planting cover crops. Planting cover crops. That is what we call soil erosion, and that's all about splash erosion. We come to sheet erosion. Sheet erosion it occurs, and this is a very common question, it occurs in form of landslides. Sheet erosion occurs in form of landslides. And these landslides usually bring down buildings. If you watch news, you find that some buildings collapse. Some of the factors that lead to collapsing of building is what we refer to as landslide. Now, sheet erosion occurs on a gentle slope, almost flat. So on a gentle slope that is almost flat actually. And it is the type of soil erosion that is hardly noticed. It is hardly noticed. Why is it that sheet erosion is hardly noticed? Because it carries a uniform layer of soil. It is hardly noticed because it carries a uniform layer of soil, such that you cannot be able to see or to notice that soil erosion took place. And it occurs on a flat land or a gentle slope, not a steep slope. And sheet erosion can mainly be controlled by also planting cover crops. So cover crops can be used to control two types of soil erosion, which is splash erosion and sheet erosion. These are the main ways to control, but we also have other ways that we can control soil erosion with. So the third one is real erosion. The third type of soil erosion is real erosion. So real erosion occurs in a gentle slope. Real erosion occurs in a gentle slope. And it forms what we call channels. It forms what we call channels on the ground surface. And I've said it occurs on a gentle slope. So I want to draw for you an example of real erosion. So it is a gentle slope. If that is your land surface, which is a gentle slope, you find that there are some channels of water that flows. So as this channel of water flow, it leaves some holes such that it carries soil in those holes. So these holes or these channels can be referred to what we call rills. These channels of water can be referred to what we call rills. And it occurs on a gentle slope. And this is what we call rill erosion. Rill erosion can best be controlled. Rill erosion can best be controlled by what we call terracing. What is terracing? Terracing is construction of what we call terraces. Terraces, to bring the point home, in simple Kiswahili, ni mitaro. Mitaro, in English, we call them terraces. So, the construction of terraces is now what we call terracing. So, it is done to control rill erosion. So, how will be terracing done? The terracing will be done such that you construct a terrace here. You construct a terrace there. You construct another terrace here. You construct another terrace here. So when you do that, you will be able to reduce the speed of the water that is flowing, and the soil particles will be deposited there. So these are terraces. So rill erosion can best be controlled by what we call terracing. I believe we are together and you're following the lesson. So I'm going to handle the last type of soil erosion, which is gully erosion. So the last type of soil erosion is gully erosion. And gully erosion can be defined as an increased rill erosion. Gully erosion. It can result due to increased rill erosion. So gully erosion forms U or V channels. Gully erosion forms U or V channels on the ground. So if this one is your ground or your land surface, then we'll have either V-shaped terraces or depressions. If you look at it, it's in V shape. So it will either have V-shaped depressions so that is a V-shaped depression, or it can also have a U-shaped depression. Now this is V-shaped. When we come to U-shaped, this is what I call U-shaped. So it will be more pronounced. So these are the depressions that I'm talking about, either V-shaped or U-shaped. And gully erosion usually takes place in a steep slope. And the best way to control gully erosion is construction of what we call gabions. Gully erosion is best controlled by construction of gabions. Gabions are also called check dams. The other name of gabions are called check dams. Now, how are gabions constructed? They are constructed by taking a wire mesh, two wire mesh. So you put wire mesh on these channels, the U or V-shaped channels. So you put wire mesh on one side, on the first part, and then you put another wire mesh on the second part, and then you put stones. So you put stones. So that is how we control gully erosion. So if it is this V-shape, for example, you come here, put a wire mesh, come here, put a wire mesh. So after putting a wire mesh, so this is the wire mesh you've put. After putting a wire mesh on both sides, so you come in between the wire mesh and put stones. When you put stones, now you'll have constructed what we call a gabion. You'll have constructed what we call a gabion. So that is how gully erosion is best controlled. We have simplified ways of coming up with gabions, whereby you take sacks and fill in soil. and then you put along these channels. It will still act as a gabion or a check dam, the other name. And gabions control the rate of soil erosion. They conserve soil and not water. That is also a common question. So gabions conserve soil. They conserve soil and not water. So we have answered all our objectives for the lesson. The first one, we defined what soil erosion is, which is the carrying away of top fertile soil by agents of soil erosion. Objective number 2 were to name agents of soil erosion, which we talked about wind, which talked about water, and we also talked about animals. And our last objective was to give the types of soil erosion, and the types of soil erosion are 4. We have splash erosion, also called spatter erosion, or also called raindrop erosion. Then number 2, we have sheet erosion, which occurs in form of landslides. Then number 3, we have rill erosion, which forms channels on the ground. Then the last one, we have what we call gully erosion. And gully erosion, which is best controlled by what you call construction of gabions or check dams. As you progress with this topic, that is the content for class 6. But as you progress on, you will come to look at what are ways of controlling soil erosion. That one will be handled some other time later. I want to take questions in very few minutes, about 5 minutes I can answer your questions. So I want to see if there's any question that have been asked so that I can be able to answer. So I have some few questions here. Someone is called Frederick. Hey teacher, I'm Frederick from Magadi. Which is the main agent of soil erosion? The main agents of soil erosion, as I was discussing, I said that too. We have water and wind. Those are the main agents. Good morning, teacher. It's Peter Okello from Nairobi. How do animals cause soil erosion? I said, when I was explaining that part, I gave an example. If you have a herd of cattle, and then they are going to graze, wherever they pass, you'll find that there are some channels they leave. We have some pathways where they walk through. So while this pathway is being constructed, it means there is some soil particles that are being removed such that you can see a clear pathway. And that is how they cause soil erosion. Let me look at another question. My name is Amon from Laborate High School. My quiz is, list for me disadvantages of rill erosion. Okay, you said this is from Laborate High School. This is content primary, class 6. So we don't talk about advantages and disadvantages of rill erosion. But just to give you one answer, is it loses the fertility of the soil. It enables the soil to lose its fertility as one of the disadvantages. Hey teacher, you've said rill erosion is occurred in gentle slope, but why not steepness slope? Okay, I cannot really understand your question, but just to emphasize, I said rill erosion can occur in a gentle slope and also a steep slope, but gully erosion mainly occurs in a steep slope. Let me answer as many questions as I can. Hi, is glacier an agent of soil erosion? Samuel from Kasarani. Yes, glaciers are agents of soil erosion. Yes, they are. And they are agents of soil erosion. Let me write with a good color so that you can see. Yes, they are agents of soil erosion. Yes, they are. Just to answer you. We move on. So we have Irene from Embu. Between terracing and counter farming, which is the best method to control rill erosion? The best method to control rill erosion is terracing and not counter farming. Hi teacher, kindly repeat the definition of splash erosion. I'm Kevin from Bakalari. Okay, I repeat the definition of splash erosion for the sake of Kelvin from Bakarale. Splash erosion, I have said it is also called spatter erosion It is also called raindrop erosion. That is how many different books define it. So this is your land surface, and then we have water droplets that are falling down. As they hit this ground, you will find that they displace soil particles. This is a raindrop. As it is hitting, you find that soil particles are being displaced. So as they are being displaced, at the end of the day, we'll have formation of some small holes on the ground. So that is how soil erosion, that is how splash erosion takes place. I see I have one more question, so let me answer it. What is soil conservation? Soil conservation is a content not in class 6, in class 7. But soil conservation is how well can we preserve soil. To conserve means to preserve. So how can we preserve soil? So preserving soil, we'll talk about how to preserve soil erosion and how to preserve soil pollution. But that is content class 7. I say this was soil class 6. But nevertheless, I can still answer your questions. So up to there, I believe I've answered all your questions that have been asked. Up to there, I want to end my lesson. Thank you for tuning in. And remember to do your personal revisions, which is very necessary. Up to the next time we meet, have yourselves a wonderful day.